Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz this Saturday in Dallas, Texas, August 5th, 2023. So how did we get here? Well, quick recap. Jake Paul has a 6-1 record in boxing. He beat a couple of influencers. He beat a basketball player, Nate Robinson. Then he proceeded to fight MMA fighters. First off, he beat Ben Askren. Then he beat Woodley, Tyron Woodley. He had 2 fights with Woodley, beat him both, with the second one ending in that big knockout. And then his biggest challenge up to that point was Anderson Silva. He actually beat Silva after a decision. And then he had a couple of canceled fights. He was supposed to fight a different dude. Ended up fighting Tommy Fury, brother of Tyson Fury, the heavyweight champion of the world in boxing. So that was his first official loss. And although Jake Paul claims, it is a loss, but I learned a lot. He became a bigger guy. And, he's all about his business. He's a marketing genius. He is an influencer after all. He said he made $30 million after that fight. So, yeah, I mean, that's how he ended up here fighting Nate Diaz. He called him out. Nate Diaz, previously this year, fought his last fight in the UFC. So then he proceeded to retire, at least from the UFC for now. It turns out things have changed in the meantime. So he fought Tony Ferguson, submitted him in the 4th round, and here we are. Today they had the pre-fight press conference. They sort of had a little bit of back and forth. Of course, Jake Paul brought his big robot, and from what I've seen, he had the robot had those little 2 screens where highlights were playing. I think those were highlights of Nate Diaz being beat by his opponents in the UFC. From what I can tell, because I saw a lot of ground and pound. That was definitely not Jake Paul and his highlights, but it was rather the highlights of Nate Diaz losing. So that's what I saw. Back and forth. Again, that guy from Jake Paul's camp had a question. So it was a little bit of a circus show, but as expected, I guess. And then they did a face-off, sort of a face-off, actually. It was quite a bit of a distance between them. And that ended in a brawl. So between the 2 teams, Nate Diaz and Jake Paul's team, they threw a few punches were thrown, but it was abruptly ended and then broken out by the security. So, and here we are. Yeah, so the fight is on Saturday. Jake Paul is the clear favorite. He's the more the more athletic, stronger guy, has knockout power, and has proved it quite a few times. He can definitely throw a punch that can put a man down, no matter who they are. He beat MMA champions of the world. In Tyron Woodley, Ben Askren was also champion in his own right, and then of course the biggest one, Anderson Silva. He lost to Tommy Fury, but yeah, he did really good. It was a close fight. It wasn't a dominating performance thoroughly by Tommy Fury. So we'll see what happens now. He's definitely the favorite. This is the very first fight of Nate Diaz in boxing. He never boxed before. He's known for his MMA striking. He's very durable. He's been in a lot of endurance events. His cardio is out of this world. But more importantly, his jiu-jitsu is world class. He's a black belt. He choked out countless guys. That's what he's known for, of course. And his style, of course. He's a very popular guy. He's California from Stockton, California. He represents that day in, day out. And of course, in Texas, he also has a large number of people supporting him. So, yeah, Dallas, Texas, that's where it's going to happen. 10 rounds. People say if this goes the distance, Nate Diaz has a better chance. Although my official prediction for this fight would be, even if it does go the distance, I think Jake Paul wins it. But I think Jake Paul will win this with a stoppage in round 8. So that's my official prediction. I just think his punches will be too much for Nate Diaz. He might not necessarily knock him out, but yeah, Nate Diaz has never been knocked out. So that's also one interesting fact. And we'll see if that will change on Saturday. And then after the fight, what happens then will be also very interesting. Nate Diaz already in a few conferences for you interviews mentioned right now that he might come back to the UFC. he has ambitions in that aspect. So we'll see, what does he actually mean by that? Who would he fight? And if he would come back to the UFC, he would sign a contract. Will that be a 1-fight deal, 3-fight deal, or more? Very interesting to see. Or he says he would do an MMA style fight outside of this, in this kind of format, not in the UFC. So it seems like he's not really pursuing a boxing career, and it makes sense. This was a money fight that was made. Both of these guys are going to make a lot of money. There's no question about it. And like I said, Jake Paul previously said he made $30 million in that fight with Tommy Fury. Crazy amounts of money. But yeah, so, and of course, Nate Diaz also makes it seem like he's not interested, but that's just, I think that's just his style. He doesn't really care much, and it's going to sell either way. Of course, Jake Paul at the same time is the master genius marketer. He knows how to promote fights. He knows how to bring in the numbers, and he will always never be satisfied. He will do the best he can to promote this fight more and more. So my question to you guys is, what's your prediction? First of all, are you interested in this fight at all, fight fans? MMA fans, boxing fans, are you guys at all interested in watching this? Will you watch this on Saturday? Let me know, please. I would love to know. If you like this video, please like and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.